Okay, this is Collaborative Annotations with Miss Stark and Miss Main, and we're going to be going through an example of how to collaborate on a close reading passage together. So this structure you'll see is going to be very similar to the first reading check that you will be completing. It'll be on a symbol. We will be giving you the symbol on your reading check, but for today, you're going to be identifying it with a passage that we're giving you. For the actual reading check, we will provide the symbol and you will explore and look for a passage in the text. But we're going to go ahead and get started. The symbol that we're going to be working with and identifying today is hair. And this will be something that you will brainstorm in class for this activity. So we'll dive deeper into this quotation as to how we got to hair and why it's important. But let's talk about the context of this story.
So this quote comes from when Jack is hunting in the forest at the beginning of chapter 3. This quote describes his love of hunting and his sort of obsession that he's developing for hunting. This comes before his argument with Ralph about their priorities on the island, and it, in terms of his hair, which is the symbol that we're looking for, shows the progression of time that's happened between chapter 2 and chapter 3.
So you were talking about how it comes before his argument with Ralph.
Mm-hmm.
About priorities on the island.
And this just helps us see why Jack's priority is hunting above keeping the fire going or building the shelter, like Ralph's priorities are.
Okay, awesome. Something important about noting about the context and how we just discussed it is the fact that we talked about what's going on before and after this moment in the text. So I think what we should do now is talk about the close reading passage itself. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. We'll come back to this box, but you want to go through before you start your analysis and the discussion of significance. You want to annotate the text like we've been practicing in class. Okay.
So if we start, I'm just going to go ahead and start by reading the quote to us. Then dog-like, uncomfortably on all fours, yet unheeding his discomfort, he stole forward 5 yards and stopped. His sandy hair, considerably longer than it had been when they dropped in, was lighter now, and his bare back was a mass of dark freckles and peeling sunburn.
Nice. So off the bat, I like to highlight imagery. Okay, so we're going to highlight some of the important imagery that stands out. The dog-like, uncomfortably on all fours, and we can come back and talk about why that's important. His sandy hair, how it's longer.
And lighter.
Yeah. Bare back.
Dark freckles and peeling sunburn.
Yeah. So all of this imagery is contributing to the fact of kind of the decline of their appearance and how the island is encompassing, what they now look like, that loss of control.
Just if I'm going through some of the things, I think this dog-like is important because it connects to Jack really becoming less human. He's becoming more like an animal. Mm-hmm. And he, being on all fours, right? He's hunting like a dog would.
Yes.
Like a hound or a hunting animal. Because he's losing some of that humanity and becoming more in tune with the forest and the nature around him.
Mm-hmm. Connection to nature.
But not just any nature, right? Like connection to like this wild forest with...
Yeah. Emphasis on wild.
I think it's also interesting that like he even notes that he's uncomfortable.
I was going to talk about that too, this idea that he is uncomfortable, and maybe some of that fear that we see in Jack throughout the story is coming out in the uncomfortability, like he's just fully encompass this wild thing, but it's maybe not.
It's not fully
It's
comfortable.
not fully comfortable for him.
Well, and two, I think that, and also at the same time, the fact that he's unheeding his discomfort, right? Like he's not listening to it. Even though he still feels it, because he's not, completely gone. He's still human. He still has some humanity, as noted by the fact that he's still uncomfortable with this progression and also uncomfortable in the position, right? But he's unheeding his discomfort, meaning that he's more interested in sort of seeking this like savagery, right?
Yes.
Sort of seeking this desire to kill a pig than he is his own like personal comfort.
Right. This kind of all adds to here. Okay, so his sandy hair longer, lighter, bareback. I think all of this contributes to how the environment of the island
Is like changing, yeah.
Is changing, and then therefore changing the boys.
Mm-hmm. Well, and two, right, like there's not an indicator of passage of time outside of this, right? We see that a lot of time has passed. We don't know how much, but enough for his hair to grow considerably longer, right? And so it had to be, at least several weeks for that to happen between chapter 2 and chapter 3. Right. And so we see that there's time, and the more time that has passed, the more that he's sort of fallen into this animal-like behavior as he's hunting, right? And presumably he's been hunting pretty regularly.
Right. Let's see what else we have here.
I think if we're connecting back to animal 2, this bareback, right? Yeah. Like he's choosing to go more natural and not wear his clothes.
I think also like the way he's walking forward, how it's not quickly, it's kind of this stop and go. It's almost as if he's unsure. It still goes back to the uncomfortability of it. And it's still animalistic, like how an animal would sneak up on its prey.
Yeah. Yeah, he's behaving like an animal predator would behave. I think dark freckles does a couple of things. I think it also talks about sort of the passage of time, right, for like your skin to develop freckles because of the sun and the peeling sunburn, right, meaning that you've had time not only to get a sunburn but for it to start healing and peeling.
Right.
But
also the pain they might be feeling. This speaks to the physical.
Yeah.
But it could lead us to think then of the emotional.
Well, I was going to say it tells us that he's gone without a shirt for a while, right? Like,
right.
So today isn't like his first day sort of acting like this
savage.
Yeah. Like he has slowly been descending into that, as we can tell in the passage.
Okay, great. I think we did a nice job of marking this up. And I feel like I have a better understanding of it. Do you have a better understanding of it?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think what we can do now is go and keep this and move back over to our document and think about the analysis and significance of this passage. So we can come back to our quotation and what we marked up, because I think we did a lot of the significance already, but let's put it into some analytical language and work together to do that. So we need to answer a couple of these questions. How does this evidence from the text relate to a symbol or topic? So how does our evidence relate to this idea of his hair?
I think before we do this, I think it's important for us to talk about how when we're answering this question, we're not sitting down to say the answer to question 1 is the answer to the question. We're writing a paragraph that answers these questions inherently.
Right.
We're looking for that analytical writing.
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it shouldn't just be a regurgitation of these 4 questions in 4 sentences. We are looking at that quotation in explaining the significance, and all this will just come up as we go.
As we do it, yeah.
So we do want to keep in mind that our focus is the hair. So
Right.
how about we start some analysis on the hair, and as we go, we can check off if we are hitting on these points. Maybe we start our first sentence.
Well, actually, let's start at the bottom here. If a symbol is discussed, be sure to connect it to a topic and explain. Like, I think this is our, like, what is our theme? What are we proving?
Yeah, okay, good question. I think this idea, we think we need to make this connection between hair and savagery.
I agree. Yep.
So,
I would say, like, the progression of the boy's hair length demonstrates their descent into savagery. Because it indicates the more time spent with the island, but also as their hair grows, we're seeing behaviors.
right, the progression of the boy's hair length demonstrates their fall into savagery as it displays how much time has passed, but also how it's affected them physically.
Mm-hmm. And their actions align with, as they look more like animals, they act more like animals.
Yeah, and also how it has had an effect on their actions and appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can get into the animalistic as we go.
Yeah, and that allows us to talk more than just about the hair from the passage.
Right. Okay. So I think now is a good time to start feeding in the animalistic adjectives that we've been using, and also embed maybe some parts of the quotation into our analysis. So that makes it a little bit stronger. So let's think.
I think let's start with the hair, right? Like,
Right.
I think the hair, and then, quote, the considerably longer.
Jack's quote, sandy hair was, quote,
Considerably longer.
considerably longer.
Which, like we said
Revealing-
in the annotations, it denotes a passage of time
Yeah.
and a more animal-like, not physique necessarily, but physicality.
Is taking on and features as it is, quote, longer. Maybe we also say sandy again. What else makes it flutter? Lighter
Mm-hmm.
and lighter. Okay, great. So we're talking here, it looks like we are already answering some of these things. So we're talking about hair is equal to savagery. We're doing this already. We're going through the significance after we name something. We can come back to this, and it sounds like we're also doing that. So maybe let's keep going. I think
I would say to connect to the hair, like, as his hair is growing, so
Yes.
too are his animalistic actions.
right, as his hair is growing, as he is, quote, uncomfortably
Mm-hmm.
on all fours.
And then I would say,
in a, quote, dog-like position.
and then I would connect that back to like losing humanity, the sort of thing that we were talking about in our annotations.
Yeah, so demonstrating a loss of humanity and fall towards, let's see, savagery
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even, I want to say the word predator again because I feel like, and fall towards savagery.
Yeah, as he's becoming an animal-like predator, right? He's hunting not as a human predator, but as an animal predator.
Becoming an animal-like predator. Okay.
Should we talk about how he's still uncomfortable with it here?
Yes, definitely. Jack has an, quote, unheeding, let's see, let's start here. We'll just say a discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
With his physical position at this point. Maybe mental too.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Which I think tells us that he's still retaining some of that humanity at this point.
Okay. Let's see if we're missing anything else. Maybe we can touch on this foreshadowed if we think anything is being foreshadowed.
I think actually that is
right
perfect.
here.
Yeah, we could
retaining
talk
some.
about,
Yeah.
because I think that unheeding his discomfort is
Right.
foreshadowing.
Talking about like how he's going to deal with this, like what it might look like later, and this idea of hinting at mental and physical. A lot of the descriptions in our passage were all physical descriptions, but it's going to affect him mentally. Okay, cool. Well, I think we've hit on all these points, and we did a good job of embedding evidence. I like how we did that. Do you think we need to add anything else, Ms. Stark?
I think, yeah, I'm going to add to this foreshadowing comment just a little bit. I'm going to say, the fact that Jack is unheeding this discomfort. I'm just gonna say foreshadows a continuous
Fall and
fall towards savagery.
yeah.
Because I think, yeah, inevitably,
Yeah.
the fact that he is feeling it but is unheeding it tells us that he's going to continue.
Exactly.
And I think that kind of wraps it up in terms of like the connection back to what we said in the beginning, that this is demonstrative of a fall into savagery because it's their animal behavior matching their animal looks.
Yeah, I love it. I think a couple things to point out about the analysis that we just sat here and did together is that, you know, we didn't necessarily say this is significant because.
Yeah, we didn't signpost. post.
Right. So yeah, we're not posting the signs as we go, right? So we decided, what do we need to talk about here? Well, we need to talk about what is hair, what's that message of hair in this passage. And so we started to just naturally go about that, and you can see as we naturally went about that, these questions were all answered as we went. So I would suggest trying that in this activity with a partner, because you have someone to work with and have the conversation with out loud. And you heard how we bounced off of each other. I would also suggest really pushing yourself to embed evidence like we did. Take these smaller parts of a larger quotation, right? You don't need a whole sentence. You just need these adjectives, right, to support the significance of why hair is equaling savagery. So try that with your partner. Make sure you mark up your passage in detail and go through this graphic organizer, because this will come up again in your activities in class.